Greetings and welcome to this demonstration of SolidWorks. This is version 2013, and in this edition we'll be looking at circular or rotational features, and we'll be designing a very simple, not this complex, but a very simple motorcycle rim. This is a general example of a pretty cool one if you ask me. So let's get to it. So I've already opened up a part, and I'm going to use millimeters, grams, seconds, and I'm using the ANSI standard of dimensioning. And again, we need to think for ourselves, what is the most important aspect just from the get-go? Where should this origin be? Well, everything in this motorcycle rim rotates about that central axis. So we need to choose where we're going to put that axis and where we are going to design our cross section. So why don't we start off actually creating an axis using reference geometry. So I'm going to use two planes, and I'm going to decide I'm going to use my front plane and my top plane to make my axis, and I'm going to design the cross section of the rim on the front plane because that's the part that actually faces the front. If you don't understand, just keep watching. Hopefully you'll understand in a bit. So I want to create this axis. It's a good idea to create an axis if it's a really important thing to your design, and then you can easily reference it and move it around as needed. So now I'm going to click on revolve boss base. Now I could just start with sketch if I wanted to, and then go back and revolve that around the axis. So I'm going to go start here, and I'm going to sketch on this front plane. Now I'm going to start with this line, and I'm going to start off of the axis so we have a kind of like a hold on the middle, and I'm going to go straight up here and come over a little bit and go straight up like this and over and up, which is kind of how that other kind of looked. And I'm not too worried about having it all exact and perfect. I'll make sure that those things kick in later using relations. Now, one important thing is to make sure you also have a center line. If you didn't have an axis, you'd want to make sure you have a center line, especially this center line will serve as the line that it assumes you're rotating about. I'm also going to put in another center line going from here up through here to serve as a center line of symmetry. So here's my sketch, and if you'll notice, it's kind of a little bit cockeyed and stuff like that, which is just fine. So we're going to go in, do some symmetry. What I'm going to do is that there's something you can't see that I'm doing, which is I'm going to be holding the control key down as I make my selections. I'm going to select this outside line, and that axis, and I'm going to make them symmetric. Now, the only way I can select all three at the same time is by holding the control key down. So hold the control key down, this, and this. Do this again, this, and this, and they are all symmetric. And continue on with all the ones that should be symmetric about the center line, but you also have to select the center line. This. Yes, this is the boring part of the video. Again, sketching is probably the hardest part of the basic skills for SolidWorks. But if you set up your sketches well, everything else can fall nicely into place. Now, I want to make this horizontal, so I'm just going to click on it, and I can either go in here and make it horizontal, or I can click on it and notice how this shows up. I can make it horizontal there. Okay, now and should be able to start dimensioning some of these. Most of this is set up. We might have some issues when we're done, but I'm going to dimension this line, and that's a little bit thick, so go with 20 millimeters on that. Everything seemed to pull together there, and measure the outside. Now watch this. I want to measure using diameters. I can go here, and that gives me a radius. If I go on the other side, notice how that turns into a diameter. Radius, diameter. I'll show you how it. If I put it up here, it's a radius. If I bring it down here, it knows to go on either side of the axis, and it becomes a diameter. So 300 millimeters, let's make it close to 400. Well, I just made a mistake. That's okay. Just double click on it. There's another big mistake. 400. There we go. And I'm going to make this 20. And then from here to here, notice how I can make it at an angle, but I don't really want that. I don't want it horizontally, at least not yet. I want this to be vertical. So if I just bring it out to the right spot, it'll end up being vertical. But you'll have to play around with it to make sure you get what you want. I want this to be with respect to the axis, but I want to make it into a diameter. So and this thickness here, now notice some of these things are turning black. I've only been doing everything vertically at the moment, and notice how the rest of this isn't coming with it, but I can make sure that that happens in a second. So I'm just going to click on this and drag it up. If I click on this and then hold the control key down and click on that, I can make them collinear and they'll line right up. So now if I drag this out and back, everything else changes too. I think I'll dimension this now. And then from here to here, and from here to here, now I can make this one at an angle because I want it to be the thickness of the metal at that point, and it did not like that. That's okay. Yep, didn't think it like that. So there's something else going on here that we have to work out. But I'll continue putting the rest. Now, to try to make everything nice and black, I figure out what can move around here. So I can take it and drag it back and forth. Ah, we don't have horizontal with respect to the center line here. So I'll want to make this a certain distance here. And now it is all turned black. There we go, that's a little bit better. In fact, I think we can get rid of that one and put this dimension that I wanted earlier in. There we go. Now I've actually captured my design intent. So if I neaten this up, you can see hopefully what's more important. Okay. Okay. So that looks pretty much like I was hoping to do. Can double click there and those arrows can come out on the other side. Yeah. And things will change as you zoom in and out. This isn't really a drawing, it's just a sketch. And now this still is blue. This axis is right on this one. So this is the axis that I'd created before. It's okay if it's blue. It's fully defined. All right, so that was the hard part. Now comes the easy part. I'm going to next select my axis of revolution, which is right down here, and it rotates it through space around that axis. Now that we have the main body completed, if we wanted to go back and change it, there are two different sets of parameters that we can change. Most of them are right in the sketch. Now I can either double click on the sketch and those parameters will show up. So if I just want to change a number, I can do that. I can double click on this, and these parameters for the feature show up. Here it is. The only parameter is 360. I can change that if I wanted to say 270, and that's how many degrees I have. And I might have to rebuild it using this, and look. Double click on that again. Change it to 360. Rebuild it. And there we go. If I wanted to change the sketch, double click on that, or I can edit the sketch. But here I can just make this 450, and rebuild it, and there the lip comes up a little bit higher. And double click on sketch out. And now I am again in redefining the sketch. I can change any of these relations that I have going along here, but I'll just change this back. And I'm going to exit the sketch. And it's back to 400 millimeters. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is put a hole in here for some of the nuts. So I'm just going to use an extruded cut, and I want to put it on this plane here, and I'm going to change my orientation so I can see that right plane. There it is. Just make a hole right here, nice and centered. I'm going to dimension it again to the origin here. I'll make it 50 millimeters like that. Give it a diameter 15 millimeters. Be done with that. Now if you'll notice, I didn't fully define it, so I'm going to go back in later and fully define it. But I actually have it going right in the middle of this. So I want actually to cut it on both sides. So I'm going to have two directions. Direction 1 is going to go through all, and then I click on here for direction 2, also through all, and it does both sides. Like I said, I'm going to redefine it. Notice how this minus sign here means that it's underdefined. So I'm going to right click, edit sketch, and see why it's not fully defined. I can click, oh, it drags around. Okay, I thought it was right above this line, so I'm going to go back to there. Make sure I click on the center and here, and I want them to be vertically oriented to one another. Ah, now they are. It knows exactly where it is, and it turns black. Okay, now instead of doing all the calculations and whatnot needed to make it go in 6 places like our drawing had, I'm going to simply use a circular pattern. Well, you don't see circular pattern up here. It's because it's on one of these little flyouts. There's so many different things available to us based on these flyouts that it's worth just trying them out sometimes. But here's our circular pattern, and it thinks that I want to make a circular pattern of this revolve. I don't. So I'm going to delete that. There it is. And instead, features to pattern, which feature I want to pattern, I can click on this here. Sometimes it's not easy to do. So when you've got something going on over here, the feature tree shows up here, which is kind of helpful. So I'm going to click on that cut extrude, and I want 6 of them. And if I want to see the full preview, well, it's not being very helpful. Oh, I need to have an axis. I'm going to move this around. So I'm going to click on that axis. If you'll notice, a preview comes up, but I don't want them all like this. I want them equally spaced around. All I need to do is click here, and this comes up very nicely. I can very easily change this 5, 4, on up to many, many, many. I'm just going to stick with 6, and that's it. Very, very simple. In fact, I can do all sorts of interesting designs. So I'm going to do an extruded boss base on that same right plane and go look at it straight on. And I'm not going to bother making dimensions on this. Just show you this kind of a fun little thing to do. And just done with that. And I'm going to make it again 2 directions through all on both of them. You know, I don't want this to go through all. I want to right click and change it and go 15 there, blind, 15 there. Let's see if that comes out right. There we go. Can add stuff to it, or could have made a cut, anything like that. Now I'm going to make another circular pattern. I'm going to use that feature right there. I'm going to make 6 of them at 360 around that axis. And I'm done. This demonstration showed how to use circular patterns and a circular revolved protrusion, or what they call a boss base. And the most important thing here was to get your sketch right. So we made the sketch, made sure we had the right axis, showed you how to create diameters over that axis. We used a lot of relations that were symmetric about this other center line. Then we made a single hole and made a pattern out of it. Then we made another boss extrusion and showed you how to do those on both sides, and then made a circular pattern of that as well. I hope this helped.